So, it's a date at 8 with President Cyril Ramaphosa. He's expected to outline new restrictions to curb the spread of COVID-19 in hotspot parts of the Eastern and Western Cape. Already, events, parties and public facilities have been closed or cancelled as the numbers increase. And while we don't expect a shutdown of beaches and provincial borders, earlier curfews and restrictions on restaurants, bars and alcohol trading could still curtail economic recovery and, of course, some of our holiday fun. Let's discuss this now with political analyst and host of The Fix here on eNCA, Karima Brown. Hi there, Karima. Well, you called it right last night. You said the President would be speaking to us this evening, and indeed he is going to address the nation at 8. So we won't get all details until then. But just to solidify what you've been able to learn so far about what you think is going to happen tonight.
Well, I think this evening there's going to be an enormous amount of focus on Nelson Mandela Bay. As you know, the surge in numbers there is incredibly worrying, and more so the lack of capacity both from public and private hospitals. As you know, the ICUs are full, they're running out of ventilators. But we've heard some more disturbing reports, which brings me to the fact that I think there's going to be a lot of emphasis on localized measures to deal with what is happening in that area specifically. So the head of the public health in Nelson Mandela Bay spoke to various media, and one of the things that is of big concern is the fact that a lot of shops are apparently diluting sanitizers. So people think that they are observing the rules when they go and shop, and they go into shops and they're given sanitizers, but they've actually found that sanitizers are being diluted. So there's going to, in my view, be very specific regulations that's going to be targeted at getting the basic rules right. So things like social distancing, masks, sanitizing, because even though people are seen to be doing that, a lot of what is happening is a cutting of corners in terms of safety and the quality of what we're using. So we need to make sure that those things are properly adhered to, and I think there's going to be a lot of monitoring. There are going to be on-foot patrols, for example, in Nelson Mandela Bay, where people are going to monitor compliance on issues like that. The other thing that the acting mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay has been asking for, and remember, he's also made presentations to the council that heard, the latest on the situation. One of it is that the sale of alcohol, as I said last night, Sally, be brought back into line to regulations level 2, which is that it be sold
4 days a week.
4 days a week, Mondays to Thursdays, and cap it at 5 p.m. So no sales afterwards. The liquor boards in the Eastern Cape, particularly in Nelson Mandela Bay, has already indicated that they will cooperate. And if establishments are found to violate this, they will enact a speedy, pulling back of that institution or establishment's liquor license. So I think the measures are going to be that granular, Sally, and that targeted, because what you have is a very real breaking down of numbers in different areas. So people know where the super spreading is happening, because you have contact tracing that is happening, and they know exactly where they need to lock down in certain areas, pretty much like they did in places like Italy and Spain.
So that's quite interesting, because as you say, because our testing and tracing is so much better than when we went into our first lockdown, we're able to target the areas that are a problem. But who makes the call? Because we've obviously seen these high-level discussions over the last few days, but from what I've read about what they've done in Italy, it's actually left up to the mayor of the area. So are we going to give that much power to the mayor of Nelson Mandela Bay to say, right, this is what I'm locking down, this is what I'm not locking down? Is that what the President is likely to announce?
You know, Sally, people forget that when you look at the national disaster regulations and the database and the way in which we collate data, it's actually based on municipalities and districts. So the contact tracing is going to give you even more efficient detail.
Yes.
So I do expect a lot of intervention to come from the mayors. One would expect them to be in charge of locking down their cities, because they're the first citizens of those cities, and they've given their conditions to the National Command Centre.
So that's not a problem when your mayor is an ANC mayor and national government is ANC. But what about in the Western Cape? We know that the DA is absolutely against any form of lockdown, and they believe that compliance is the way to go. Couldn't that lead to some problems?
I think the regulations of the lockdown is going to be such, the disaster management, that everybody will have to adhere to certain protocols. So whether you are from party A or party B, if you have, for example, X amount of people positive in a particular area, you are going to have to put in place certain protocols. So it's not going to be a political decision about whether or not you want to shut down. It's going to be driven by the size of the surge, what the push factors are, and how to lock it down.
All right, so there'll be very clear targets.
Absolutely.
The thing that South Africans want to know is it going to ruin Christmas?
Well, I think if you have, you know, people on ventilators or people unable to access public health or even private health because they have been infected by kids who've gone to a bash or to a tavern, then you're going to have a bad Christmas, whether you can gather with your family or not. You know, it's
well, that's the perspective, isn't it?
Precisely. It's very hard to deal with illness that can cause death in a situation where finances are already constricted.
True. We also have a domestic tourism industry to keep afloat, though.
You know, one of the things that worries me is places like Port Alfred, for example, have already been placed, you know, by the Sarah Baartman municipality under, you know, as areas where you have to have lockdowns. And those areas are, of course, driven by tourism. So they're going to be very, very hard hit. But I think there's an opportunity here again, Sally, for people to be vigilant. It's about balancing livelihoods and lives. So if we want to save jobs, let's make sure if our restaurants are open that we make sure that people are seated properly, that the sanitation is up to scratch, that we practice social distancing. So if we are vested in saving jobs, we should be vested in curbing the pandemic. The sooner we are able to get our numbers under control, the sooner people will be able to earn a living.
Have you heard anything about provincial travel restrictions? Will people be able to travel across the country this festive season?
I haven't heard anything specific about travel. I think the two areas that will be affected by that either way is the Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. There's a lot of migration to and fro. People work in the Western Cape, they go to the Eastern Cape. Both are, you know, choice areas of destination for holidays. The beaches are there, they're coastal. And I think that that's probably stuff that will be left, you know, to your provincial governments. I doubt whether we are going to go down to a hard lockdown like we saw under level 5. I think what you're going to have is localized initiatives around things like compliance. You're going to have a lot more inspections of places where super spreading events happen. And then I think, you know, your open spaces like your beaches and so on, where it's really hard for people to contain themselves because South Africans, for example, you know, get into their cars, they go camping or they descend on the beach on the 26th, as you know,
it's a big day.
Cape Town, exactly. And I think what tonight's announcement is going to do is going to allow authorities in those areas to make proper, you know, arrangements
so
to
control
curb
the beaches,
movement.
but not close
Absolutely.
the beaches.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think the mask thing must become mandatory. You just cannot be in the street without a mask.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Karima Brown, political analyst, of course, also hosts The Fix on Sundays at noon here on eNCA.